Well, hope everyone's having a pleasant morning. We are still getting to know this 2023 PowerStroke F350 Super Duty with the standard output 6.7, not the high output. And it's a very, very different truck from anything we've ever owned before. We actually own right now a total of 4 diesel trucks. We've got a 2003 Ram 3500 with the 5.9 Cummins, a great truck in a whole lot of ways. It's actually out in California right now. We've got a 2011 6.6 liter Duramax dually in a Silverado. Again, a good truck in a lot of ways, whole lot of ways. Has some limitations. We got a 2021 3.0 PowerStroke, and that's a very, very good truck. We've done a lot of towing with it, and it's also got its limitations. And then this is our 4th. We just picked it up 14 days ago, and we're still getting to know it. It's very, very different, and it's got a lot of features that our other trucks do not, and we're still getting to know those features as well. The first, as you can see there, is the heads-up display, which we've discussed on a number of occasions. It works well, and it provides you a lot of information which we would call news you can use. And it does a very, very good job of helping you keep your eyes on the road instead of having to look down at the instrument panel. And that's a good thing because that instrument panel is very, very busy. It's fully digital. We've never owned a fully digital instrument panel before in a truck, and let's just say we've got mixed feelings about it. You know, if you grew up in the 70s and 80s, you kind of instinctively are turned off by those things, because the early ones, the original ones, were absolutely horrible, and it's just easier. And I don't know if it's a Gen X thing or if it's just the way it is. It's just easier to read real dials and real needles at a glance or with your peripheral vision, as compared to something that looks like a video game. And so again, we'll just say the verdict is still out. But at the same time, that instrument panel does give you a lot of information, which we would categorize as news you can use. The way we've got it set up here, the tachometer isn't a big round gauge. It's a small sort of bar graph type gauge, and that's fine. It works just as well as the much bigger one. In fact, it's actually better calibrated. As you can see, it's calibrated down to the 250 RPM level. The boost gauge actually has digits on it, which you don't get in that dial. The engine brake, which is the percentage of power that the exhaust brake is applying. The percentage of exhaust filter, meaning how full it is from 0 to 100%. And then your def level from 0 to 100%. And so that's all useful information. But if we had the choice, we wish Ford gave us the choice, we still would have gone with the actual physical gauges. Actual dials for your speedometer and tachometer, and then maybe a digital screen in the middle, just like we have on the F-150. But in any case, today's video is about this exhaust brake that comes with a 6.7 PowerStroke. And this specific engine and transmission are essentially unchanged from 2020, which was the last time they were revised, when the power was plussed up to 475 and the torque was plussed up to 1,050. That's easily all we need. That's easily all that 99% of truck buyers are ever going to need. In a lot of ways, it feels like the high output PowerStroke is it's almost an ego trip on Ford's part. They want to be the first truck maker to hit 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. And so they went and did it. The question for the truck buyer is whether it's worth an extra $2,500 to get a truck with 25 more horsepower, which is like 5% more horsepower. And for us, it most definitely was not. Southeastern Pennsylvania, where we live now, has a lot of steep hills. And while we have not yet hitched up this truck to a heavy payload, you're supposed to go easy on it in the first 1,000 miles. Anecdotally, with either just the truck by itself or about a 5,000 pound trailer, it's got easily all the power we're ever going to need. And we don't expect that opinion to change once we start hitching up our 48-foot trailer and loading it heavy. The heaviest we've loaded that trailer before was 19,000 pounds, which brought the truck and trailer to 28,000 pounds when we had it hitched up to our Duramax. And we could probably load it quite a bit heavier with this thing. But again, when you think about the F450 and 550 cab and chassis, those things are D-rated, and hotshot truckers use them all day and night to tow big heavy trailers, grossing out at 40,000 plus between the truck and trailer. And so if I think 330, either 330 or 350 horsepower and around 950 pound-feet of torque, which is what the D-rated Duramax, the D-rated PowerStroke gives you, if that's good enough for them, it's then this engine is more than good enough for us. So the exhaust brake, this is the second truck we've owned with a diesel exhaust brake, and this one is very different from the one in our 2011 LML Duramax. And it's different in a number of ways. The first way is that it has both a manual or a standard mode, and it has an automatic mode. And we've tried both. And it appears that in the automatic mode, it's a little bit more reluctant to engage. In the standard mode, it comes on more quickly and more aggressively in more situations. However, having owned and driven and really enjoyed our 2011 Duramax for a number of years now, for 2.5, 3 years now, that exhaust brake engaged early and often and very aggressively. And would not hesitate to kick in and slow that truck down almost to a crawl from any speed, whether we were going 60 miles an hour, 65 on the highway, and we suddenly let off the throttle because we were coming up to an off-ramp, or whether we were going down a very steep hill at 30 miles an hour. It didn't care. It engaged early and aggressively and slowed us down to a crawl, and did not disengage until we were going maybe 5 miles an hour. And so that was what we were used to, and that was what we expected. And we'll just say this one here has got us scratching our heads. In a case like the one we're in now, where we're going downhill, and you'll see here, it's going to get steep. Yes, it does a very good job keeping you out of trouble. And it does not let you get into a runaway truck type situation. Look what it says, 12% downgrade, use low gear. All right, will do. Okay, so we've got it at the speed limit, 45 miles an hour. The grade's picking up. And now the exhaust brake is kicking in aggressively. However, you did notice that we sped up to about 50 or 52 miles an hour. Okay, now it's at 53+%, 57%. And it's slowing us down a little bit. And the RPMs are up above 2,500. Again, look at that thing. It's working hard. And so we can't complain, because in a case like this, where you're going down a very, very steep hill, it's going to keep you from flying off the road and into a river or down a ravine and to an early grave. But here's what it doesn't do. It doesn't help you come to a stop when you're approaching a stop sign suddenly, or when you're maybe the light ahead of you unexpectedly changes from green to red, and you have to, and you find yourself having to slow down from 50 miles an hour all the way down to a complete stop unexpectedly. And in a case like that, the exhaust brake really essentially just sits there and watches and doesn't really lift a finger. And that is a bit of a surprise and something of a disappointment. You know, we can't complain too much, because at least it'll help you get down a hill safely. But it will not, what it will not do is help you come to a stop. And so we're going up another steep hill. You get to see that effect again. And if you notice, this truck has no problem getting up steep hills. It's got all the power you're gonna need, as far as we're concerned. And now we're cresting, and now we're starting to come down. You can feel it kicking in immediately to help keep us from accelerating out of control. So it's a mixed bag, and not sure what to say. Again, the fact that it's there, and the fact that it will, when the chips are down, will essentially save your life going downhill, whether at 40 or 50 on a 2-lane road like the one we're on now, or at 60 or 65 on an interstate. That's great. But it just, I'm not going to say it has us concerned, it just has us wondering what the deal is. In a case where, again, which is much more common, where you're either getting ready to come off the interstate and you're slowing down for an off ramp, or you're slowing down for a stop sign or a red light. So that's interesting. It's at 55% here, even though the RPMs aren't really up, and we're only going 35 miles an hour. So I'm sorry, that's the DPF. Not the exhaust brake. So again, the verdict is not yet in as to how well this thing does in day-to-day operation. What it will do, though, is keep you from going completely out of control on a steep downhill descent. And that's something that our 03 5.9 Ram will not do. And that's something that our 2021 F-150 with the 3.0 PowerStroke will not do. Which is a bit of a shock, because that 3.0 was extensively revised before going into the F-150. And the same engineers who work on the 6.7 PowerStroke did a lot of work on the 3.0 PowerStroke to get it ready for pickup truck duty. But what they didn't do for some reason is, for some unknown reason, is program it with exhaust brake functionality. And that's got us really scratching our heads. In any case, though, it's a great truck. We are very, very happy with it in a great many ways. And we'll just get to know it better, and let you know if we learn anything more about how to get this exhaust brake to want to do its job a little more often. This truck is a F350 and it's only got 17-inch rims, and so the brakes are small. The brakes are maybe, the rotors are maybe 13 inches in size, give or take. Probably no bigger than 14 inches. And while the truck is rated to tow 30,000 pounds, which means it's also rated to stop 30,000 pounds, it just has us wondering how long those brakes are going to last, because we find ourselves using them a lot more and a lot heavier than we had expected to. There's a guy named PD Diesel, I think that's his YouTube handle, and he has a fleet of trucks, and he says all of his 6.7 Cummins powered Ram trucks, the brakes on those, the brake pads on those tend to last 200,000 miles, as do the rotors, because again, his drivers are never ever on the brakes, because the exhaust brakes on those trucks do practically all the stopping. Just like in a Tesla, like the Model S that we used to own, when you come off the accelerator, that car immediately goes into regen mode, which is essentially similar in its effect to engine braking. All right, going downhill again. This time at slow speed. And so yeah, the truck is keeping you from getting out of control. But on a Tesla, you never ever use the brakes hardly, because the engine or the electric motors are doing all the braking. And in this truck, we have a feeling we'll be going through brake pads and rotors a little bit more often than we did in our 2011 Duramax. And we'll see how well these brakes hold up when we've got a heavy load hitched up. You know, it's just kind of an open question. All right, well, I think that's all for now. Hope you all have a pleasant day, and we will talk to you soon.